Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming to IBC today for Youth Sunday. I'm glad to see everyone here. I'm preaching on 1 Peter 2, 4 through 10 today. But first I want you guys to get to know me. I've been here most of my life. Moved here when I was 2. Been at IBC since I've been about 3. So you guys have seen me in diapers before, most likely. You guys see me grow up in this church, and I appreciate that. You guys have helped me grow, more importantly, and form to be what I am today. So I just want to thank you, first of all, for being here for me, and just keep an open mind for the words I'm getting ready to say. Man, I took a long time to get to the point where I felt confident to come up here, and that was about, I want to say, 9 o'clock this morning. So, I mean, even last night I was panicking, just trying to figure out what I'd say to you guys, how I'd feel comfortable, whether or not there'd be more people, which there was, than normal Sunday. So, thank you for coming again. It's good for you guys to be here. And Ryan Lotz brought up a good point earlier. The Pastor Search Committee, I should say. I'm available. I'm going to take this as a audition of sorts. So if you think I did pretty well, I'll send my resume. See if I'm available. School's not that important, right? So 1 Peter 2, 4 through 10. The first point that it kind of brings up, and the most important, I think, is verses 9 through 10. It says that we are built into a holy nation, that we're a chosen people, that we are called to worship. And God had called us to do this. Like, we were born into the holy nation. We are already accepted into His nation. And so as you think about this, you think, we're all already together. We're not necessarily come together until we accept Christ. But as all of us come together, we have to think of unity. The idea that we are all together and that we have to work together to do God's work. And Nehemiah 3 through 6, it talks about Nehemiah coming into the city of Jerusalem and the city walls being in shambles. And that the condition of the walls are so bad, the enemy of Jerusalem makes fun of them for how bad it is. And the people of Jerusalem have become so defenseless for themselves that they form their own sects, like their own little gangs of sort to defend themselves, because they're not unified. Like, they're not together, so how can they defend themselves as a whole? So Nehemiah comes in and he tries to rebuild the city of Jerusalem. So he gets everyone to collectively come together and rebuild this wall. So every single person in the community, children, old men, coming together, working together to rebuild the wall. So, and you think about this as a dual purpose. Try to think that they are both protecting themselves from the enemy, but they're also building a wall around themselves to make themselves stronger from the inside out. Because we are not of the world, but we are in it. So we have to be able to separate ourselves from the world, to get stronger, to get to know one of each other, so that we can form and develop as a whole. And I mean, the easiest way I thought to describe this is like a monk in a monastery. They purposely separate themselves from the outside world so they can be stronger in their faith. So as we build a wall around ourselves, we have to make ourselves stronger as a whole. And the Word calls us to come together as a whole to build and repair the holy nation's walls. So whenever someone falls, it is our job to collectively come together and lift the person up in need, both in prayers and in physical needs. So if one of us has a hard time in life, we have to be able to help that person out. We have to come together and help them to get back to their normal point so that we remain as a whole, so that none of us are lower than each other. We have to be strong equally so we can be strong collectively. And the idea that I have for this is, think of this piece of paper as the church. It's a whole. It's clean cut. I mean, it is a church. It's strong. Each individual direction. There's no holes. It's solid. So, if we have a person fall and no one fixes that problem is like punching a hole right in the middle of this piece of paper. I mean, even the smallest bit of a hole, I mean, it's about 1 centimeter wide. That's one person falling. So, I mean, you're thinking it's ripping in different pieces because of that one hole. So even if one person falls, the church will rip itself apart from different places because that one weakness, Satan will find a way to get into that one weakness to rip ourselves apart. We need to be strong as a whole, like I said, so that we can come together and lift each other up in prayers and physical needs so that we can be strong collectively. And we cannot let our internal affairs to compromise the strength of our wall. We cannot pick at each other and purposely hurt each other so that we compromise the strength of our wall. We're doing it to ourselves. I mean, every person in the Christian belief has that weakness where they find a flaw in someone and they exploit it. But we all do that. I do that. But we have to find a way to not do that. Because every time we pick at someone, we weaken ourselves too. Amen. And the idea of rebuilding doesn't necessarily finish that thought. We have to build onto the wall. Because every person in this world is already a part of that nation of God, but we haven't brought them into that. So if we are this nation of God, we are a building that we have built up for ourselves. Each individual person is a part of this wall. So imagine a house, there's a bunch of houses and they all come together to form a community, but there's a bunch of rocks like this just sitting around out in a field. And that's non-believers. So what we have to do is we have to pick up these rocks and put them into our own community so that we can build on to the nation of God. And the next thought is the foundation, that Jesus is our cornerstone. This thought is expressed in 1 Peter 2, verse 6. It says, He is our foundation. Jesus is the center of our nation. So, Jesus is the whole. So imagine a whole bunch of houses being built on one foundation, and that's Jesus. So as we build up and we form bigger houses or bigger walls, Jesus is still there. And we have to keep him at the center. We have to constantly remind ourselves that Jesus is the center of our lives. And be careful of the wording of this passage, because it starts in verses 6 through 8, and it says that the expression of Jesus is our cornerstone. And then it goes on saying that for men who do not look, they trip over the cornerstone. So you have to be careful the way it's worded, because I was mistaken for a good solid week on how this was expressed. You really have to look into it deeper, because Jesus does not make us stumble. We were born to stumble as we were born into sin. Jesus is the best thing we have when we believe in him. So we come together and we believe, but when we don't look, that's when we stumble. So we have to constantly in our lives trust him and believe in him. So even like the simple task of mowing your lawn, Jesus has to be there in your head so that you're thinking. Because every second that you do not have him in your thought, you're doing something else, and that's not glorifying God. We need to be like a horse with blinders with Jesus. We constantly look at the outside world and get distracted from our main point in life, and that's worshiping God and spreading the word. So our normal lives gets us distracted. Like a horse race has blinders, so he doesn't see the crowd, he doesn't see people on the inside of the track doing stuff, he doesn't see other horses, he sees straight ahead. Like his goal is to finish and keep running. And that's what our goal is. We need to keep going and keep believing in Jesus, and we need to get to that main point, and that's worshiping him. So every time we sit down and we watch TV, or we sit down and we play a video game, we get distracted. So the idea that we have to constantly focus on him is what I'd say the most important thought in our lives, is that's going through every part of your day thinking that Jesus is there, and he is. And that's that part of the solid foundation, the idea that he is always there and he never changes for you. And it goes on to say that Jesus is a solid rock, and he allows us to be constant. Like, we should never stray from him, that we don't have the reason to, because he will always be there and he will always be solid. So if we have a problem in our daily lives, all we have to be able to do is just go look at Jesus. I mean, that's our escape almost. Like, if you get fired from your job, just go and be with Jesus for like an hour. Just sit down and pray. Because no matter what you do, he will always be there to comfort you and to guide you through the problems that you are having. And I mean, it's hard to understand what it's saying almost. Because, I mean, in our lives, we go through, I mean, for me, my goal through going through school is not to become a missionary or to spread the word. And that's a problem with me. Like, I want to become a pilot, and that's not necessarily doing what I need to. But if I have that mindset of Jesus and spreading the word, no matter what we do when we go through our lives, we can constantly glorify him. And the last part, and the biggest part, I'd say, is 1 Peter 2, 4 through 5. And in 1 Peter states that we are all living stones. And this, it took me a while to expand on this thought, because 1 Peter just said we are living stones. You don't necessarily think of spreading on that idea, like that analogy almost, is that we are all stones. We are all unique, and we are all individual. So the earth is made out of rock. Yeah, as you all know, it has a molten core. So every second of the day, new rocks are being formed, and old rocks are being turned into dust and forming back into the soil, and that will eventually melt down and become the core again, and then 6 million years later, it'll become a new rock. I mean, it's kind of complicated to understand, but the idea that new rocks are always being formed, just like we're always being formed. New people are being added onto this nation every single day. And the idea that we are all different is the hardest thing for me to understand, is that we are all irreplaceable of sorts, that we cannot be destroyed, because there will always be a void where we used to be. So you guys all have your rocks, right? I'll pull them out for me. I have mine. Simple. I don't know what it is. I don't know, a rock or a stone. It's something, right? So pull it out and look at your neighbors. Compare it. Are they the same? Are they the same color? Are they the same shape? Obvious enough. No rock that you will pick up on the ground will be the same as the next rock you pick up. They all have a different composition, they always have a different shape, and probably a different color. So I look at Mike's, or Logan's. Mike doesn't have a rock, if you didn't pay attention. See, my rock is a different color. So what happens if I take Logan's rock away? Can anyone get me a new rock that looked like Logan's or had the same shape as Logan's? So what I'm saying is we can't replace Logan. If we beat Logan down and we take Logan away from the equation, we will be missing him forever. There will never be a different rock to come fill in that gap that Logan was. So again, that point of we can't beat each other down. We can't purposely pick at each other and destroy that rock, because we'll never be able to replace them. So let's just say we get in a fight with someone, and we make them feel so bad that they don't come back to the church anymore. And that person no longer comes, and let's just say 4 more people were a friend of that person. Well, what if they don't come anymore? Because Logan isn't here anymore. It's a chain reaction. And eventually, we'll just hurt ourselves, like I already said. Because if you take one thing away, it creates that chain reaction, and bad things just keep happening. You'll never be able to stop it. So we have to keep that solid formation, that solid wall. The idea that we are all interconnected, so we can't hurt one person without hurting ourselves. You know, a good idea of this idea of uniqueness, and is that going throughout our individual lives, we need to be able to be determined from non-believers. We need to be different. So if I walk into Walmart and I can see Miss Judy or Caitlin or my mom, I should easily be able to tell that they're a Christian, right? Yes? Yes. Yes, okay. So we need to be able to determine who is a Christian and who is not. So we have to be different from the outside world. Just like for me in school, the easiest way for me to go throughout school without having any problems is to blend in, to be like every other person and to be like a cookie cutter shape. And there's a few people that you can see they're the Christian type that wear khaki pants and a nice shirt and they carry around their Bible next to them all, but they carry it like at their side and they read it during lunch. But the worst thing I feel on the inside is that person getting picked on, like being ragged on for being a Christian in school. Like that's a negative thing. Like going into school and being a Christian is bad. Just like going into work and someone calling you a Christian, that being a bad thing. We can't let that happen. We need to be able to go through our lives and be a Christian, like a good thing, that positive outlook on life, that we help each other, that we help other people, that we spread the word, not that we go crucify other religions and we pillage villages like they think we do. So, I've honestly had that problem in school. Like someone's gone up to me and said, so you guys are Christians, right? You guys like persecute people and you like pillage villages, right? I'm like, what century are you in? The Crusades was 1,000 years ago. And I'm not even kidding, that actually happened to me. And you think people would just be a little bit smarter. I guess not. But that idea of a difference, that we are all different. A good movie that I like, The Shawshank Redemption. Most of you guys seen that movie? Yeah? Well, towards the end, Morgan Freeman gets a postcard from his friend. And he has to, and it's like a hint, it's a clue. And on the postcard it says, there's a tree. And at the tree in this farm, like 3 miles down the road from wherever point, is a wall. And there's this big, like 3 mile long wall. And they're all stones. But the hint says, walk from the tree down the wall, and you'll eventually get to this stone that is different, that is not supposed to be there, as it says. And it's like a lava rock. It's black compared to being like a gray rock like most other rocks in like the United States. So we need to be this lava rock, this different rock that we can just easily pick out from a wall. So we can walk down this wall and find this rock that is different. We need to be able to do that so we can make ourselves stronger. If I'm in a really bad situation, and let's just say I don't have a church, I'm by myself in life, I don't have a church to go to. If I walk into Walmart and I know this person is a Christian and that person is a Christian, we should be able to go up to them and get help from each other. We need to be an intertwined circle. Like if I go to California, I should be able to find a church and get help from them. We need to be a system almost, this holy nation, this interconnected force that works together to spread the word. Because the Great Commission says we should go out and spread the word of Jesus Christ. How can we do that if we're all separated from each other? Yeah. Like this is one church in Newport News. How many Southern Baptist churches are in Newport News? What, 300, maybe more? So how can we work together as a united force if I go down the road and I walk into this church and they look at me going, well, you don't belong here. We're just hurting ourselves. We need to be able to work together. And that's the thing that people don't get. And I still can't grasp this idea of interconnecting forces to be able to work together, like I said. So we have to go through life and making connections and working with people and making a good reputation for ourselves. Because if we mess up in life, even the smallest mistake, people will hold it against us. They'll call us hypocrites our entire life for that one mistake that we made. And Jesus says we'll make mistakes, but He will be there and we will be forgiven. Amen. So we need to be able to try our best and try and try. And if we make a mistake, we need to admit it and go throughout life and going, I made this mistake, I need to try not to make it again. So, like, let's just say I curse a lot. Not that I do, but I curse a lot. So I go into school and I blah, 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 curse a lot. And I never admit the fact that I have a bad mouth. And all my friends never admit that I have a bad mouth. And people never see the fact that I cannot control my words. Well, how am I going to make it better? How am I going to fix myself if I cannot rely on someone else for helping me? So we're separating ourselves for the point that we don't get embarrassed. That without the connection, we won't feel guilty, or we won't have this bad feeling inside ourselves. So if we have this like connection, see, I like Mike, he's my best friend. I go to Chipotle with him all the time. So, and one time I let bad words slip out in front of him. And the first time he doesn't say anything. The second time though, he has like a problem with it. So he's going to say something, of course, because he's a good friend, like he should be, right?
Right.
So, and he's going to call me out, and it's going to make me feel bad, but at the same time, I'm going to make myself better so I don't feel that way again. I'm going to fix myself from the inside so I won't feel guilty. And that's what we have to do with each other. We have to constantly check our friends and check our family members to make sure that we are still in line. Because the further that we get away from God without being checked almost, like this idea of fixing something, if we just keep getting worse, we're never going to be able to get back to where we were.
No.
We need to help each other. And that's the biggest thing that I want to express, is that I should be able to go up to Taylor on a random day and get help from her. But she's shy, so she probably won't help me, right? She'll probably just sit there and smile. But eventually, if I go up to her enough times, she's going to help me. And that's what we need to do with each other. Because, I mean, I don't know everyone in here with that best connection. So even though we don't know each other, we should still be able to help each other because we are a part of the same family. We are part of that same wall. So, and that's the idea that I want to express. And another part that kind of helps this idea of like a uniqueness and forming and becoming your own individual thing is in Genesis 1-2, God created the earth and it happened in 6 days. So what I don't understand, and no one should, is God's power. Why did God do it in 6 days? Why did he not just go and create the entire universe and everyone and just start off doing that? Why did he go one day and do something and the second day do something and go through a different process? And that's when I said in the beginning, all of you have helped me form to be my own individual person. Like Mrs. Judy taught me in the back for a lot of years, I don't remember. But she helped me be the person I am. She helped me form and become this Christ follower that I am. And without her, who knows what I would be. I would be different, of course, without that impact. But who knows what I'd be different. But it's that idea of forming. Just like rocks form, like a volcano shoots out a whole bunch of magma blasts, and those become rocks. As rocks form, we form. But the difference is we form under God. And this shows that God works through a process, and it takes time to grow as individuals and develop. And this also occurs in Exodus 6:6. God frees the Israelites from slavery overnight, but yet it takes them 40 years to get to the promised land. Why would he do that? Why would he not let them develop and then free them so that he goes straight to the promised land? It's that idea of formation that allows them to become their own individual community compared to what they were when they were freed from the slavery. So think of how much they changed in that 40 years. Most of them probably died off and had children, and they were their own individual person. Back then the lifespan was a lot less. So there's new people, and there's a new idea, there's a new leader, there's a whole bunch of different aspects that go into this new community. And that's what this formation gives into, is that we change and that we need to change. that we need to change as a whole, more importantly, to get to this solid community. And I kind of want to finish it off almost with the idea that God works through a process. We need to learn and grow as a community, and we need to be the strongest stone we can be. Allow yourself to be a part of this holy nation. Allow yourself to grow and form, get this better idea of yourself, and work together. Okay, let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for all that you have done for us. Thank you for this great Sunday, it being all sunny outside. And just pray for all of us that we can use the words that I preach today, and that we can form, that we can work together, that we can be a part of this holy nation, that we can change ourselves from what we need to be to what we want to be, so that we can work together. So, in your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.